it.
If you don't like, yeah, that works.
Yeah, no, that's, you know, you can't take away the lie, but you know, you can always fix things in editing. So, hey everybody, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world I think you should know about. Today's guest I met many years ago when I used to live in Sherman Oaks, and I lived across the street from the Fashion Square Mall, and there is a Sephora there. And that's very dangerous because Sephora is amazing and they have so many things that at least I wanted to buy. And I love makeup. I don't wear a lot of it anymore now that I'm 60, and mostly because I live in the desert and it's like 200 degrees and it basically just melts off. But when I did, I met the most extraordinary, talented makeup artist like I've ever known. And I say that because some of you know that I used to do television, I used to do comedy. And so I've had a lot of makeup professionally done for me. I've never seen a more talented makeup artist. And I follow her on Instagram because I just love looking at the beauty and the transformations of the people she does. Her name is Geena LeCorgne, and you can even get a session with her. I know I'm going to because it's been a while. And she is going to be doing makeup for any age. We have a little bit more mature skin because I tend to have a more mature audience. But what I love about her is that if you ask her, she'll use all vegan brands and she knows which ones they are. And anytime I'd go into Sephora, she'd always use only vegan brands on me. And she just knows everything about makeup. And I miss her so much. Please welcome Geena LeCorgne. It's so good seeing you. You're so beautiful.
AJ, you're so sweet. Thank you so much for that extremely flattering introduction. It's so great to see you. And thank you so much for having me on your show today.
Are you kidding? I'd have you I mean, I love makeup, Geena, even though I don't wear it. I think of it more like art. I mean, and especially the way you do it. It's art.
I absolutely agree. I'm a very creative person. So this is an outlet for me to be able to show my creative side. And I've always looked at makeup as an art. So I'm so glad that you see it like that too. And really excited to share some tips and tricks with you guys today and answer any questions that you might have in regards to maybe some struggles that you have with your own makeup routine.
Right. And we do, because we have some questions about mature skin, especially the eyelids. So why don't you tell us what you're going to do? And then, well, I'll monitor the chat and if there's questions.
Great. So this is my beautiful model, Jessica. So she works with my mom and has seen my Instagram, and it was perfect time for her to come in and let me do her makeup. And she has great skin. We've already prepped it. But I always like to make sure that when I'm doing a makeup application, that we're starting with skincare. So the better your skincare prep is, the better your makeup is going to look, but especially for more mature skin. As we mature, we start to get a little bit more dehydrated. We might see less collagen, so there's less plumping. So we really want to bring back and restore that youthful glow in the skin so that our makeup will look like our own. So I've already used a couple of products on her to get her skin nice and plump and hydrated. I use an essence from Innisfree, which is a vegan line, skincare line. And this just helps to hydrate and plump the skin. And it's going to make the other products that I use actually work a lot better to penetrate deeper into her skin. And then we did a little moisturizer from Tarte, the Dewy Skin Cream, which is amazing. This is a little small size, but they do have a large jar too. But this is incredible if you're dry. I'm personally oily combo, and I love this stuff, especially for wintertime, because the way it replenishes the skin. And it's such a perfect base for underneath makeup too.
Yeah. I want to say something though to everybody, because one of the things I love about Geena is like you're not a brand. Like that was one of the things I loved about Sephora versus going, say, to a makeup counter at like a Macy's, is because they always want to sell their brand. You always directed people to the best product, not to you know what I'm saying? And you're always true to that.
Thank you. Yeah, I think makeup is different for everybody as well as skincare, and it's super important that we customize what works for each person as an individual. And for me as an artist, I can recommend my favorite things and what works for me, but that doesn't mean it's going to translate to someone else who has different skin than me. So I always find that, the better I can customize something for someone, it's going to make their whole application at home a lot easier too. Plus, we want to get products that we know we're going to use and that we're going to fall in love with. So I appreciate you saying that, AJ. You've always been such a big fan of mine, so I really do appreciate you. Yeah. And one of the other things too, I worked at Sephora for 6 years, so I have a pretty broad knowledge of a lot of brands, but I currently work for a company called Kendo, and they own 5 brands that are exclusive to Sephora. Well, now 4 of them are exclusive. One has just recently gone into Ulta, but 2 of those brands are actually vegan and cruelty-free. So those are the main brands that I'll be using today. It's going to be Bite Beauty and KVD Vegan Beauty. but I also have a couple other products that I'm going to throw in that are also vegan too. But you know, these aren't obviously the only brands out there, but these are high performing, good quality, beautiful makeup products. So I'm really excited to get to share these products that I personally love and know can work for so many different people.
You know, for some people, vegan and cruelty-free is so important. And I always said this to Sephora, but they never listened. Why don't they just have a vegan section? It would make it so much easier.
You know, you're right. And I think, AJ, you were kind of like, you know, one of the first in the beginning of, you know, the vegan craze, right? Like this, we started to hear a lot more about it over the last couple of years. And I think brands have become a lot more aware of this being a need and something that people are looking for, as well as, you know, earth conscious products, clean, cruelty-free. All of those things have become more important to people, I would say, especially in California. I know that's where I hear it the most, but I wouldn't be surprised if Sephora ended up going that route, because I know that they have definitely made a huge focus around clean beauty and natural beauty. So I feel like vegan brands fall into that as well. So let's go ahead and jump in and get started, shall we?
Absolutely.
Okay, so
your eyes look, I know I keep saying and then I interrupt you, but your eyes look beautiful. And I'm thinking with the masking now, you know, that's all we have to show is the eyes.
That's so true. And I mean, you know, I've always been a big fan of playing up my eyes as well as my clients, but now it's like the most perfect time to really be able to do it, because you can spend the extra time that you might normally on your face now on your eyes. So thank you, AJ, I appreciate you. So since her skincare is all prepped, her skin is all prepped with the right skincare products, and it's kind of had some time to absorb, I want to go in with my first step of the actual makeup application, as we will start with complexion. And this is going to be the Bite Beauty Primer for normal to dry skin. So Bite Beauty is a clean, natural brand. They are vegan, cruelty-free, gluten-free. They are very conscious of their ingredients. So what I love about this particular line and their complexion products is that everything has skincare in it. So it's all good for you, as well as being, you know, if you're vegan, you can also feel good about what you're putting on your face too. But the hydrating primer is fantastic for normal to dry skin. It has hyaluronic acid and olive oil in it to help nourish and replenish the skin. But ultimately, it's going to help to bind moisture to keep you hydrated so that your makeup looks more like one with your actual complexion. Now, if you are more on the oily to combo side like myself, you might need to use the normal to oily skin primer, which is designed to do the same thing in terms of prolonging the wear of foundation. But this has willow bark in it, which is designed to help mattify and absorb excess oil throughout the day. Or if you're very combo, something I've always been a big fan of doing is cocktailing my primers. So a lot of people tend to be more oily in their T-zone. So if that's the case, you can apply the oily primer directly to the areas where you're more oily, and the hydrating primer to the parts of your face where you might be more dry. But since Jessica does tend to have more normal to dry skin, I'm going to focus on the dry skin primer for today. Typically, I would be using my fingers, but just for, you know, safety precautions, even though I have a mask on and everything, I'm going to use a brush to apply this. But a little bit does go a long way. Oh, it's a brand new one.
I would imagine though that in the stores now it's going to be different, right, Geena? Because you can't just really be trying makeup on like from samples anymore, right? And even having the artist put it on.
Correct. So right now, testers aren't even allowed to be used. So we can't even color match the same that we normally would in the past. I'm not sure when that's going to change, but hopefully sooner than later. But we are really, I know at least the company that I work for, we've gotten a lot of trainings and updates on how we can best suit our clients and their needs within this climate and the quarantine, or not quarantine, but within the pandemic, to make sure that we're still able to get you what you need, even in a no touching hands-free environment. But definitely miss playing with makeup in store, that is for sure. Okay, so I'm gonna go in with my brush here. So Jessica told me that her main areas where she gets the most dry is in the cheeks. So that's where I'm going to focus this initially and then spread it out throughout the rest of her face. So I love this primer because it's while it is very hydrating, it still feels lightweight. So you get a lot of comfort throughout the day. I know most people don't like to feel like they have a lot on their skin, especially when they're wearing foundation throughout the day. But this one will just give you like basically an extra layer of moisture without it feeling like you're putting on a heavy cream.
Question if the products are soy-free.
That I would have to double check. I don't believe that they are, but I will for sure double check that for you.
Jessica, have you ever had your makeup done by Geena before?
No, I haven't.
You are in for a treat.
So yeah, I mean, if there's any particular struggles that you guys have within your foundation or your complexion, I would love to be able to answer any other questions. I know that tends to be something that people have trouble with a lot, you know, whether that's, you know, keeping it on or finding the right color or even the right formula. Maybe things get a little textured on the skin. It really, like I said in the beginning, boils down to how you prep your face, but a lot of the times it's trial and error. So you just have to find those right products. But I, you know, can definitely give you all some recommendations on skincare products that are best suited for your skin. How does that feel? Good. So if you are more on the mature side and maybe you have some deeper set wrinkles or even some fine lines, something that I do like to make sure that I'm doing is really focus the primer and the foundation even within those fine lines and wrinkles. So Jessica's skin is really beautiful. She really doesn't have like really any wrinkles. Like her skin's nice and plump.
That's very nice.
Well, there's nothing that I feel like I need to go in and really like dive in deep into there. So just one thing that you want to make sure that you're doing though is taking your brush or even with your finger and working that product in, because the last thing you want is for makeup to sit over the fine line or wrinkle, because then it'll literally look just like that. You want to kind of like fill in those areas to make them look all cohesive with the rest of the face.
Oh, here's a good question. How important are the brushes? Are they synthetic or animal based? Because it's true that some brushes are made out of animal hair.
Yes. So majority of my brushes are synthetic, but the natural hair brushes that I have are not animal hair brushes. KVD Vegan Beauty has some really fantastic vegan brushes. And even Sephora has some good ones too. But for me, I've always said that the better your brush, the better your makeup's going to look. Granted, today I'm going to be using a sponge more so than a brush for the foundation. But really, if you were to use this Bite Beauty foundation that I'm about to apply, I personally, when I'm doing this on myself, I just use my fingers and that's fine too. So I think it depends on the formula of the product. If you're going to, especially for a foundation, if you're going to use a sponge or a brush or even your fingers. So yeah, formula and even like the coverage that you like. So if you maybe want sheer to medium coverage, a sponge is a great way to go about that, because a beauty blender sponge does tend to absorb and shear out the product, whereas a brush will lay down more of it. So it'll give you a little bit more coverage from the get-go. So what I'm gonna do is find my sponge first. Did I misplace you? Where did she go? Okay, well, I had it in the tissue somewhere around here. Did it fall? Nope, nope. Literally have no idea where it went. So I guess I'm gonna be using a brush. Oh, here it is, okay. So my beauty blender sponge, I have nice and damp here. You always want to make sure that your beauty blender sponges are damp. This is going to help to make it look more like your skin. Granted, if you wanted more coverage, you could use it dry, but the damp sponge is actually designed to mimic your actual skin. So it makes it look more like your skin too. So I have about this much on my little canvas here, and I'm going to take a little bit at a time. And what I want to do is focus it in the center of her face and then work my way out. Typically, when we are applying foundation, starting in the center is a really great way to, or great place to start, because that's where we usually have the most discoloration. So I always like to place the product where I need the most coverage and then just kind of diffuse it from there, and then be more strategic about where I want to build more coverage if that's even necessary. But it's always better to layer and build rather than putting on too much right away. So the Bite foundation that I'm applying on her is the Changemaker foundation. And this is a really cool product for being a natural clean foundation. There's a really amazing technology behind it called micellar technology. And you might have heard of micellar water before, which is cleansing water, but it's a little different in how it's being utilized in this particular foundation. It's obviously not cleaning your skin, but the micellar technology is designed to actually allow the product to move with your skin, so it doesn't sink into fine lines and wrinkles, or fine lines, pores, and wrinkles, and it really makes it look even more like real skin. And I think that's one of the biggest things when it comes to foundation, is that it can tend to show things we don't want to see. But, you know, especially with mature skin, we don't want to go too matte. We don't want to go necessarily too dewy. But the finish of this one helps to give it such a beautiful skin-like look. And that technology behind it also helps to make it look even more like you. And I think that's the biggest thing that I tend to hear from women, is that, you know, they want to be able to look at themselves and feel like themselves, and not like they're a different person or wearing like a layer of something that doesn't feel comfortable.
Sure. So Mary says, how do you cover sun damage?
So it depends on how deep the sun damage is. So if there is a lot of depigmentation on the skin, you might need to incorporate a color corrector. So what ends up happening a lot, and this also will apply to like under eye circles, a lot of people will get a brighter concealer for underneath their eye, or they'll get a concealer to cover up some of the sun damage or like melasma, whatever it might be. But what ends up happening is that that color doesn't match the dark spot, right? It matches the skin. So what ends up happening is that that dark spot or even under eye circles end up looking or appearing gray on the face. So you don't want that to happen. We don't want to look gray. But if you color correct, you're going to neutralize those darker spots before you even get a foundation or concealer on. So you end up using less foundation or concealer because you've neutralized what you're trying to get rid of. And really the color is going to come down to your skin tone and how deep the pigmentation is. So Jessica has a little bit of some sunspots on her face, but it's nothing deep. So I wanted to really just start off with the foundation and see how far this got me, because this is a buildable foundation. Basically, it's going to give me medium coverage, but if she had a lot that was still showing through, I would have opted for like a peach concealer to help, or a peach color correcting concealer to help neutralize any dark spots in the skin. If you are more on the tan side, or you maybe have like a pretty deep type of melasma on your face, opting for something orange is going to be a better way to go to make it look like it's the right color corrector for your skin and to help it blend. But it really sometimes takes trial and error to finding the right color. And also, if you haven't already started using something, skincare products with vitamin C are really a great choice to help with evening out your skin tone too over time, rather than just covering it up.
Okay, and Stephanie says, can you recommend a foundation or a moisturizer that is for skin that is mostly dry but shiny in the T-zone?
Yes, so if you are mostly dry, I mean, you can opt for something that's creamy, but if you're concerned with how oily you're getting throughout the day, I would look at something that is more like a gel cream formula. So like one that comes to mind is the Ole Henriksen Vitamin C C-Rush Gel Cream Moisturizer. I need to double check that that one's vegan, because Ole Henriksen has some products that are and some that aren't. But that moisturizer, you've used it, the vitamin C one. Mm-hmm. What did you think of the moisturizer?
Oh, it's awesome.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's really, it lasts through the day. So you can put foundation on top of it. You still feel like you're fresh, not that dry sensation.
Perfect.
Sometimes when you put foundation.
Yes, like your skin
Especially
turns
for
it.
me, yeah,
Yes, because
like
you're on the
it's-
drier side. Yeah. Yeah.
And
So,
they're like cracking.
right. That's not cute. We don't want to crack. We want to look plump and fresh. So a gel cream formula tends to be lightweight. Like you're getting the hydration of a cream, but you're getting the lightweight feel of a gel, which is so perfect for oily skin. That's typically what I would recommend for someone who is truly oily, is to go for a more gel-based type of moisturizer. But if you are planning on wearing makeup over your moisturizer and you're trying to find something to balance out, what I would recommend is to find a nice hydrating cream and then maybe get a mattifying primer like the Bite one that I showed you that's designed for oily skin, and apply it to your T-zone or wherever you get shiny, because then you're able to balance out your skin without having to use like too many different creams, like face creams. So with the sponge, I don't know if you guys noticed, but I'm going in and I'm tapping it into her skin as opposed to like rubbing it. And that's really what you want to do with a Beauty Blender sponge, is tap and bounce it, because then you're able to really layer the coverage rather than just rub it off. I'm just getting it all in there. I'm also going to get in her eyes as well. Let me go ahead and shut. But what I love about this foundation is that because it is so quick and easy, like if you're in a rush and you just need to throw it on, take a little bit in your fingers and literally you can put it on within a minute or less, honestly. It's a really easy formula to blend into your skin and not have to take so much time to get ready.
People are asking about concealers. How do you get, so when you don't get they struggle with the crease, you know, that, you know.
We all do, right? I always like to keep it very real when it comes to concealer. I first off would say making sure that you have a really good eye cream to help hydrate and plump that skin, because the skin underneath the eyes is actually, you know, the thinnest skin on our face. Therefore, it shows everything we don't want to see when we put makeup on. But also, because it's so thin, there's no oil glands there, so it's naturally dehydrated. So when you think about even the rest of your face, if you're dehydrated and you're trying to put a foundation on it, your skin drinks it. And that's essentially what's happening with under eyes and the concealer when you're starting to see everything crease. So by starting with an eye cream, you're going to get the nice plumpage. to give a nice smooth surface and really just like a cushion for the concealer to sit on. But I'll show y'all what I like to do to help prevent creasing, because I know it is such a common thing. And I know in the world of YouTube and Instagram, we see a lot of heavy application of concealer underneath the eye. And I feel like that's where most people go wrong. So I'll for sure go over that as soon as we get to that step, which is going to be next.
Great. And then maybe afterwards you can just write down or email me or text me the products you're using one by one, because people keep asking. So
no, absolutely. Not a problem. Okay. How's this feeling on your skin?
Correct.
Good. So one thing too that a lot of people forget about is their ears when they're applying foundation. So her hair is down, but if it was up or pulled back, you would be able to see the ears more exposed. And if you're taking a photo and you have foundation all over your face, but not on your ears, it becomes pretty obvious. So I always like to just use whatever excess foundation I have and kind of just tap it onto the ears and making sure to blend down into the neck so that everything is nice and cohesive. Because I did match this foundation to more to go into her body more than just her face. Because typically our faces are lighter than the rest of our body. So I always like to make sure that there's a cohesive blend. This is looking really nice on you. Yeah. So it's really designed to look like second skin. Once again, this is more medium coverage. You're not necessarily going to get full, but there's a powder that you can use that I'll add on just a little bit at the end to get a little additional coverage, but that is not a for sure step that you have to do. But the cool thing about Bite Beauty and their Changemaker foundation system is that they're designed to work better together so that your makeup will last longer, look more like your skin, and you're going to get even better skincare benefits when you use them all together. All good. Okay. So now we're going to go into a little concealer, and I'm going to be using the Tarte Shape Tape Concealer, and Tarte is a vegan line. This is a very full coverage concealer. Some people even like to use this as a foundation, and they'll just kind of like spot treat it on their face. I'm going to take just a little bit onto my palette here and show you guys what I prefer to do to prevent some creasing. So I am going to use a brush for this, just to lay it down. All right, so I'm going to take just a flat synthetic concealer brush. It's actually like almost like a paddle. And I'm going to take a little bit of the concealer. And rather than going directly up at the lash line, that's typically where what I see most people do is they're right up at the lash line. And when you think about it, as soon as you start to crease, where it starts to crease the most is directly under the lash line. So the more product you lay down there, the more you're going to crease. So we actually want to go a little bit lower, like more to the hollow part of the eye. And what we're going to do is diffuse that particular concealer up into the lash line. So it's not as much that's sitting on that thin skin. So I'm going to take a little bit and I'm going to do a couple little taps here and create like a little baby triangle, like so. And you can also put it onto the cheekbone if you want to kind of give like a lifting effect. So this is a lighter color. It's about 2 shades lighter than her skin. So it's going to help to highlight the center of her face and create some dimension. But when you go in with a lighter color, I'm going to turn you a little bit right. Put your head down a smidge. And right there. So I'm going to put just a little bit of the concealer right onto her cheekbone so that it brings some light and lift to this particular area. This is like getting an instant facelift when you put a lighter highlighter concealer there to create the illusion of a lifted face. And I'm going to go over here, same thing. And I'm just kind of tapping it, but if you were using a flat brush, you could absolutely just slide it on. I just know that this is a pretty full coverage concealer, so I just want to disperse it pretty evenly before I'm completely blending it out. All right. So now I'm going to go back in with my sponge. And I'm going to blend this into her skin. So can y'all see okay? I know it's kind of, I feel like I'm the one closer, but.
yeah, you are a little bit closer. People are saying, is there going to be a before and after photo? I don't know if we thought to do that.
We didn't do it before, but I can probably get one from her. Hopefully. Okay. Is that a little bit better?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. I'm like, maybe I can have you, do you want to,
Yeah, sure.
Is that cool?
Mm-hmm.
Just for now, just gonna get some light there.
Susan says, I haven't been able to find a vegan eyeshadow base that stays on.
Oh, I can't wait to get to that part because we're gonna talk about that soon once we get to the eyes.
Nice. And Robin says, what about the line between our eyes that some people get when aging?
Are you asking like what to do about it or what's the question?
I'm guessing like how to minimize it or get rid of it. Isn't that why some people that do Botox to get rid of those lines?
honestly, that to me is probably your best bet, because makeup isn't going to get rid of that. You know, if anything, it'll enhance it. So I personally would get some plumping serums, maybe some firming serums to help, you know, target those specific areas. But I don't necessarily, I can't say that there's some miracle product that will, you know, fix it. Botox is really the one miracle thing I can say that there is that probably would. That's the reality, unfortunately, but you know, until that perfect product comes out that does the trick, we just gotta use what we can. But I would say like a good, even targeted firming serum is really a great idea. Because then you can, I know that they have some that are like, they have peptides in it that are designed to give instant plumping to the face. Okay, so one thing, I'll have you just tilt your head down a little bit. So where I stopped the concealer application here, what I'm doing with the sponge is I'm rolling and pushing it up into the lash line rather than just where it's at right here. Because typically if I would have gone right up to her lash line, we would go in and just tap that in. But because it's a little bit lower, I know I need to move it up. So that's why I'm doing this little dabbing and pushing motion. So at this point, if you had a concealer that matched your face, if you didn't want to go brighter necessarily, and you maybe needed a little bit of additional coverage, this is when I would go in and kind of target those particular areas. But for right now, I'm just going to leave it. I kind of want to give like a fresh face look. I don't want it to be too full coverage because I want it to look more like her skin. So I'm going to leave it as is. I'm not going to add any more coverage to her face, but it's totally personal preference if you choose to layer on more coverage. Okay. I wonder if I can, so you don't have to hold that. We're gonna just get really close.
Sure.
Okay, let's see. Maybe we can place it down now. Sorry, y'all. Just a little adjustment here. Yeah, we should just turn it a little bit that way. Okay.
Okay.
Hopefully that's a little bit better.
If I move here.
Okay.
Better?
Yeah, I think that's good. Okay, so once I complete her complexion, we'll get into the eyes. But I just want to make sure that I get the whole face done first, and then we're gonna do a really quick but pretty eye look. So
I feel like I have an eye lift.
right, you see the
Yeah.
difference? I should have shown like one to the next.
Yeah.
So what happens a lot when as we age, I'm 31 and I'm already starting to see this on myself. I'm quite excited about it, let me tell you. But as we age, that we get some hollowness underneath our eyes, and you're okay. Like yours aren't super hollow, but it's pretty normal for it to happen. So anytime you put a lighter color or like a highlight color, what you're essentially doing is bringing it forward. If you think of like when you highlight something in a textbook, you're doing it to make it stand out, right? You want to bring it forward. So that is essentially what a highlighting concealer is doing. It's bringing out parts of your face that you want to lift or make look less hollow. So that's why applying it, starting it at the hollow area and then blending it up is a really great idea. So one of the other main things that you want to do to prevent creasing is set the under eye. So I'm going to be using the KVD loose setting powder. This one here, right here. So a little bit of this is all we need. This isn't a full coverage foundation powder. This is a translucent powder. And one of the problems that people tend to have with their under eyes creasing is that they're leaving it wet. So that area is going to crease regardless, no matter if you can do all the right things, like I've said. But if your skin is still wet, I mean, if you think about when you talk, when you smile, when you squint, we're using our eyes, and that ultimately makes product move. So I want to make sure that I'm locking the concealer in to prevent it from creasing throughout the rest of the day. So I'm gonna have you just look up a little bit, and I want to make sure before I go in to set her under eye concealer that there is no creasing. So I'm just going in with my sponge and just pressing any of that excess in. I think actually I want to go in with the inner corner of your eye just a smidge. Go ahead and close for me. Just need to get into the inner corner. This particular part of the eye on a lot of people can become like maybe veiny, or you'll see some of the darkness there. And we tend to cast shadows in the inner corner of our eyes that can actually make under eye circles look darker. So it's really important with your concealer or even your foundation that you're getting into those little inner corners to make everything look nice and even toned, but also to make yourself actually look bright.
We don't actually put foundation on our eyelids.
You can. I mean, I would say better to do concealer, but like, let's say you're not using a concealer, like it's totally fine to just, I wouldn't put a lot on, but I would kind of just use maybe some excess or take a little bit from the sponge and press it into the skin. Okay, so now I'm going to take, I'm sorry, AJ, go ahead.
I was gonna say people were worried that the sponges weren't vegan because they come from the sea, but I Googled it. Makeup sponges are synthetic, guys. They're synthetic. They're not like creatures. They don't take
That's great. That's
That's a good thing.
yeah, you're teaching me something right now, AJ. I really hadn't even thought about a sponge if it would be vegan or not.
Yeah, well, when, you know, with the hardcore abolitionists, vegans, they think about everything. So that's
so true.
why. But yeah, they're synthetic.
Okay, great to know. Okay, so I'm taking just a little bit of that KVD powder and I'm just tapping it into the area underneath her eye that I've placed the concealer. Have you go ahead and look straight up for me. And I just want to really focus it on the spots that I noticed were creasing before I went into set. So once again, this doesn't have color. This is translucent. So I don't want a lot of it. I'm taking just like a small amount. I don't know if y'all can see what's on my brush, but I typically always just dash off a little bit of that excess and just really push it into the skin. And you can just kind of work it back and forth until you feel good about where it's at, or you can do just a quick light swipe. But I feel like if you go into setting your concealer while it's still wet and you do too much like brushing movements, like if you're doing too much of this, you essentially can end up moving around the work you just did. So by using those pressing motions, you're actually going to be able to really lock everything in. And then you can go in and just sort of sweep everything off. So getting rid of any creases and then tapping it in. You can also use this powder if whoever was asking the question earlier about like their skin being oily and like using a cream. This is the perfect product to set your foundation with on those particular areas of your face that you do tend to get more shiny, because this is going to help to maintain the glow where you want, but mattify the areas that you don't want to be shiny. So if it's your T-zone, you can just literally set those particular areas too. And another area I like to make sure that I'm setting is around the nose. We tend to have products settle here. So I always like to make sure that I'm really getting into the little nooks and crannies around the mouth and nose. And then also around like smile lines too, because product does tend to settle in there. So I just want to make sure that I'm locking that in so it prevents it from moving.
Interesting.
Yeah. And this powder, I forgot to mention, it actually has a little bit of luminosity to it. It's not like extreme luminosity. It just has a tiny bit of a shimmer. So what it's doing is helping to prevent the face from going flat. So if you're drier or you're worried about your skin looking too dull, this is a perfect translucent powder to use because it gives you the mattifying aspect without it taking away the natural shine from your skin that you want.
Susan says, do you like the Cover FX Compact Foundation from Sephora?
I love that powder. I actually don't carry it at Sephora anymore, but yes, I've always been a fan of Cover FX and I really do like that powder. But I will say KVD Vegan Beauty has an amazing vegan powder that is blurring and buildable coverage. So you can go from sheer up to full with it based on how much you layer. It also has a refillable compact. So it's more earth friendly for like packaging sustainability. But the powder itself, because of how blurring it is, it doesn't look like a powder on the skin. And I will say, because Cover FX, I believe, is more mineral based, sometimes it can show that it looks a little bit more powdery. But the KVD one, even alone, like not even over a foundation, it's just beautiful for making it still maintain the look of natural skin.
Are you talking about the finishing powder or the locket setting?
So the locket powder is the loose setting powder. So not to make this complicated, but KVD has 3 different types of powders.
Yeah, because I went on the website and I'm seeing 3. So they have the setting powder, finishing powder, foundation. So
you got it. So this is the loose powder. They have their finishing powder, which is fantastic. It has a slight tint to it, but it's designed to blur and almost like act as more of a blotting powder. So if you wanted to touch up your face throughout the day, it doesn't give a lot of color. It just has a slight tint, but it's designed to absorb shine and give a really amazing, like flawless finish, like a blurred out finish. And then they have their actual compact powder foundation, which is going to give you coverage. So this is the compact powder foundation. And this, like I said, is buildable. It also comes with a little sponge, but I prefer to use a brush with it because it is pretty full coverage. So a little sponge here.
Nice looking.
Yes, it's very velvety and smooth, and it feels amazing on the skin too.
the setting powder is what you put on after the foundation.
Yes, correct. So like a lot of people like to do a liquid foundation and then follow up with a powder foundation. And that was kind of like the original old school way of doing makeup. That's at least how like I learned how to do it. But a lot of powder foundations tend to be very pigmented. So if you're putting a full coverage pigmented foundation powder over a liquid, it has the tendency to go a little bit cakey looking sometimes. So by using a brush with something like that, if you're going to use it over a liquid foundation, that's why I like to use a brush, because it doesn't lay down so much and I can really build and layer with sheer layers. Or if you're worried about things becoming too much too quick, you can take that the loose powder, the translucent one, do a light set all over the face, and then go in with your foundation powder to layer on more. Because then what ends up happening is that you're mattifying any wet areas of the skin that could cause the powder to stick and become like too cakey or patchy. Okay, so now we want to add some shadows to her face. A little contouring.
So powder goes before blush and contour?
Yes, if you are using powder blushes or powder contours, like if you're using all cream products, then you can absolutely wait to set your face. I only set her under eyes and a little bit in the center here and on her nose. But if I was using all creams, then I probably would have waited to set her forehead and her nose area. But I know I'm using powders today, so that's why I set that there. So I'm going to be contouring with the KVD Shade and Light Contour Palette. This is the full size one, but they also sell these in individual compacts too. So like they have a deep, a medium, and then a light. So you didn't necessarily need all of them. You could use just one or buy just one.
Just it's pretty though.
Yes, it is pretty. The packaging is fantastic.
Yeah.
So I'm going to use the middle shade here, the medium shade, which by the way, so these are contour colors, and then these are the matte highlighting colors. So you can use this on any parts of the face that you want to highlight, as I mentioned earlier, to bring forward without adding a shimmer. Or you can just even pop one of these on, like just to brighten the under eyes a little bit more. If you felt like you needed it, you could go in with one of these as well. So I'm going to use this brush here. This is a pointed brush from Sephora. It's like a tapered pointed one. And this particular contour palette is quite pigmented. So when you're using deeper shades on your face and even on your eyes, I'm like a very big advocate of less is more. Starting with a little bit at a time is always better than putting on too much and then having to go back and erase. You can always add more makeup. It's a lot harder to take it off. So knowing that it's pigmented and knowing that I'm going in with a deeper shade, I'm going to use just a little bit along the tip of the brush, not too much. You can always shake it off. And I always suggest to people, like when you're buying a palette or something new for the first time, you don't want to maybe use it like you normally would with those products that you're quite used to. So get a feel for how pigmented that product is or how it applies on the face before you just go like full force with it. You want to get comfortable with how that product will apply. So when it comes to contouring, I don't want to go too crazy. We're not going to do like a complete, Kim Kardashian contour look here. But I do want to create some dimension. She's like, please no.
No.
But I do want to create some dimension because naturally all of our faces have different tones. And when you use a foundation, you kind of just make your face look flat. So by adding in that lighter concealer like we did, we created some dimension in her under eyes and cheekbones. But now we want to bring some shadow back into her face that would look natural. Because actually what looks not natural is having one solid tone, because unless you're, a newborn child, it's very rare that you're going to see one solid tone across someone's face. So I am going to start at the cheeks. So if you are trying to enhance your cheekbone structure, if you want to make it look like you have very, as we call it, snatched cheekbones in the makeup industry, you want to keep it really actually higher up and following it into the actual hollow part of the cheekbone. But if you do have naturally more hollow cheeks, maybe it's a little bit more sunken in as you've gotten older, you don't want to necessarily do the contouring underneath the cheekbone because that's going to actually make it look more hollow or sunken in. So if you are one of those people who has more hollow cheekbones, you would actually want to apply it on top of your cheekbones as opposed to underneath. So I am going to do a little bit underneath on Jessica today because she doesn't have hollow cheekbones. Have you get your face straight a little bit right there. So what I like to do when I'm focusing on the cheekbones is starting at the top of the ear. Actually, let's try it this way. So focusing on the top of the ear is a really great guide to where your natural cheekbone structure is. You can even feel it. There's like a natural divot in your cheekbone. And that's kind of where I want to focus the product. So it actually looks like her natural bone structure. I'm also going to start the application at the back, not in the center. Going back to the fact that this is a warmer shade, if I started here and maybe there was too much product, it would literally stick. So you would see like a nice little patch of brown, which I don't want. but it's always better to start at the back because where you first lay your brush down is typically where you're going to have the most pigment. So I can take that concentrated amount and at least blend it rather than it being in the center and being more obvious. So starting back here, I'm going to start to do little circular motions and then follow her cheekbone structure. So one of the things that I see a lot in women who are contouring is that they tend to go too low. So if you're trying to give more of a lifted effect, which is technically what we want to do when we contour, you want to avoid going below, like down here, because then it just kind of looks like you end up dirty. So if you start higher, you're able to create this illusion of a lift. And you can even go higher than your natural cheekbone structure, depending on how lifted you want to look. So I'm just taking a little bit at a time, doing those little circular motions, and then slightly pulling it down. So the more you layer, the more depth you'll create on the cheekbone. See it from the front. But I always like to keep it the deepest towards the back.
How often should you clean your brushes and what's the best way? Because I don't think I ever clean mine.
Great question. So I personally, like especially my foundation brushes, I clean every single day because I know that anything that is wet is more susceptible to bacteria. So I never want to put, a brush that's been sitting in my cup wet with wet foundation on it. I never want to put that on my face. Now, the brush cleanser that I like to use, I don't know if it's vegan, but this is the one that I always feel the best using because it really gets all the makeup out and it makes the brush smell good and it doesn't ruin the bristle either. It's the Cinema Secrets brush cleaner. This one to me, like basically you can buy a big jar of it. This is the one in the spray bottle, but if you buy the big bottle of it, you can pour it into a cup and dip your brush in and you just rub your brush on a towel and it literally will get rid of all the makeup and it dries super fast. So you don't have to wait overnight for it. However, I do recommend like maybe once a month, depending on how often you do your makeup, giving your brushes a good deep cleanse underwater and letting it dry overnight. And you can use like a brush soap for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So once again, on the other cheek, little circular motions. And if you ever feel like too much went on, that's okay. Like I put a little bit more on here than I did on the other side. Literally all you have to do is just continue to blend it out because it's not like I applied too much. It's just a little bit heavier than the other side. So I'm just going to lightly blend that. And as I'm blending it, what I want to make sure that I'm doing is once again, not going down. So a good idea, once you get your initial shadow created, is you want to pull it up towards your cheekbone. That way it creates that lift.
Somebody once said to me, up is young, down is old.
There we go. Perfect.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So every product you mention, I Google it just to see, but the Cinema Secrets brush cleaner, there's so many different ones. There's a shampoo, there's a sanitizing spray. So which thing were you mentioning?
So like their brush shampoo, like that would be the one to use when you are giving your brushes a deep cleanse. But if you're doing like a daily cleanse, just the regular one, the spray bottle or the liquid is the one that I personally use like on a daily basis.
Okay, it's not
the spray bottle is great. It's easy. If you don't have to dip it, like the spray bottle is perfect.
Is it called sanitizing spray?
I believe so.
Okay.
Quick drying, rinse-free formula. Makeup brush cleaner.
Okay.
Yeah, makeup brush cleaner.
They sell it at Sephora.
Yeah, I'm looking on the Sephora website right now because Sephora has 10% off for the next couple of days.
Oh, there you go. Get it while you can.
Yeah, they have their holiday sale.
That's right. They do. Okay, so still taking that same color, I'm going to go in and give a little bit of some contour to her forehead. So Jessica's forehead is not big by any means, but if you do feel like you have a bigger forehead, this is one of the best tips to apply on your forehead to make it look smaller. So I'm just adding in that natural shadow. I just put a little bit here, but as I add more on this side, you should start to be able to see. I'm going to turn you right here. You can start to see where it creates that natural shadow, which actually makes it look like it's now shrinking. And that's what contouring does. It recedes the areas of the face that maybe we don't want to see as much. And we're highlighting will actually bring it out and bring it forward. So I'm just kind of lightly blending it towards the center of her forehead. So you can see from one side to the other, the difference and how that creates that shadowing effect. And same thing over here. Now, when I'm doing this, I always like to make sure that I'm literally getting into the hairline because you don't want to have a gap between your hair and your forehead. It becomes very obvious. And
Yeah. Big picture, you have a line.
that too, whether it's on your
That's
forehead. Yep. I think we've all been there at some point. But whether it's on your forehead or on your jawline, you know, just making sure that you're blending those harsh edges and making sure everything looks more seamless is really key. But just getting into that hairline is very essential, I would say. Okay, so I'm gonna do just a touch more on this side just to even it out. And then I'm just gonna take a little bit along the tip of my brush and I'm just gonna like squeeze the brush down a bit and get on the sides of her nose, not necessarily to manipulate the shape, but just to create that dimension. Because what ends up happening if like she were to take a picture and there's nothing on her nose, but there's warmth everywhere else, her nose can go flat and sometimes get a little lost. I know I for sure started to notice in some of my pictures, if I didn't put anything on my nose, I was like, why does it look like that? Like it just looked imbalanced. So this will just help to create a little bit more dimension and pull everything together. And then just to finish this off for contouring, we're gonna go a little bit along the jawline. So if you want to contour your jawline, you literally want to like place your finger at the jaw, and this is where we're gonna focus it. What I see very often is that women will put it too high, and that's where you can get this like line of demarcation and it becomes very obvious, but I want this to look like a natural shadow. So I'm gonna start at the back of her ear and I'm gonna work this product literally into her natural jawline to make it look like there's more depth here, which will then make the face overall look thinner. We always want a little bit of thinness. I know that I do. I'm always down for that. But really paying attention to your face shape and also what it is that you like about your face, you know, is super important. Everyone's going to be a little different in how they want to highlight and contour, but it's really about finding what works for you. Oh, my battery just died on my light, I think. Are we okay with the light?
I think so.
Yeah, I have another one. Back up. Sorry, you guys, 1 second.
I have another one.
Back up. Okay, a little better.
We can support it with the other one, right?
I think so.
Oh, now I can't hear you.
There you go.
Uh-oh, you're a little garbled now.
Is that
Uh-oh. Well, good thing this is a visual show, but you guys are garbled now for some reason, audio.
what does that mean?
And maybe it's just my headphones. Can you guys hear okay? Could just be me.
Was it a little choppy?
Yeah, it could be me. Guys, how's the sound on their end? Can you still hear them pretty good?
Yeah.
Might just be me.
Or is it? You let me know.
I need somebody to comment, please, that's watching live if they sound okay.
She's kind of asking everyone, asking the
Yeah,
audience.
they can hear okay, so it must be me. I'm gonna take my headphones
Okay.
off and unplug from the.
All right. So as I get the shadow along the jawline, next thing you want to do is just pull any excess product down onto the neck. So once again, it doesn't become a harsh, stark line that becomes more obvious. Now, if you ever feel like, let's go ahead and put your head straight a little bit. If you ever feel like, oh, my contour looks a little bit stronger than I wanted, that's where your sponge is your best friend. I'm not going to put anything on it. I'm just going to take whatever was left on it and just kind of press the edges of where I left that contour and press it into her skin. The sponge to me is like the best thing to have, the best tool when you make a mistake, or if you just want to kind of press the products in overall to make it look like it's more blended into your skin. It's a perfect little guy to use for pretty much anything along the complexion application. All right, so now we want to go in with a little blush. Let's see, I'm going to use a KVD blush in the shade. Let's do Peony. So KVD, this is the shade Peony, which is a really beautiful soft pink. Now these blushes, while they are amazing, are so pigmented. So, you know, using a bigger brush and less product is definitely crucial to not have a pink stripe on your face. So I'm going to be using the KVD brush. This is their large powder setting brush. Yeah, it's really pretty. This is part of her, the 10-year collection, which is why it's gold, but they're typically black. But I'm just going to tap a little bit, like just a little bit onto this big fluffy brush. And for making the face look more youthful, there's different ways that you can apply a blush, but if you want it to become more youthful, a great way to do that is to apply it to the apples of your cheeks. So if you give me a quick smile, on the apples of your cheeks, it's whenever you smile, you can see the circular part of it here. So that's if you want to create this more youthful effect. If you want to give more of a contoured, structured, lifting effect, you want to focus it a little bit above your contour. But we want to make her face look nice and fresh and youthful. So taking just a tiny bit, I'm just going to start to tap this onto her cheeks and then slightly pull it towards the center of her ear and to blend into that contour. So it makes it look nice and fresh face. KVD has several colors of blush. If you're more on the fair side, there's a really beautiful like peachy tone called Honeysuckle. If you're more deep, there's one called Foxglove that is, or I'm sorry, Snapdragon, that is to die for. It's like this beautiful deep berry tone. I've never seen a blush color quite like it, but it is quite lovely. And then I'll just take whatever excess just to kind of like go across the nose and a little bit on the forehead, just to kind of pull everything together. All right, looking good. Now, if you are one who likes a little bit of a glow, you could add in a highlighter towards the top of the cheekbone. I would say just be careful with what kind you use because a lot of them do tend to have a high shimmer. I would say use something that has a more like soft light focus to create a glow, or even like a liquid highlighter is an option too, which I think is what I'm going to do on you. This is a product from Rare Beauty. This is the liquid illuminator in the shade Outshine. This is that you really barely need any of this. I'm just taking like the tiniest amount here, and I'm actually going to use my Beauty Blender sponge.
That's a metal palette.
Yeah, metal palette. So now I'm just going to go right along the top of her cheekbone where the light hits the most. I'm going to turn you right here and down a switch, and I'm just going to lightly tap this onto her cheek. So a little bit more. Just want to see if the glow will come through on camera, but this is a more of a glowy highlight as opposed to a matte highlight like the concealer, but this will reflect the light in the highest point of the face. So it brings out the cheekbone structure and gives like a really beautiful, healthy glow to the face.
How important is it to take your makeup off at night?
Oh, extremely important.
It's so hard when you're tired and you're sitting.
I know, but it is so crucial because, you know, it's not even just makeup that we're washing off. I mean, you think about pollution and just anything, herbicides, out with whatever is in the air. I mean, all of that accumulates on your face and ultimately can cause damage. Even just like, I mean, the pollution alone kills the healthy skin cells. So that's why like having products with antioxidants are so important because it helps to preserve the healthy skin cells. But if you're keeping everything on, if you're not washing it off at night, you're ultimately damaging your skin. I mean, you can obviously get breakouts. Your other skincare products, like if you're not giving your face a good wash, your other skincare products are basically pointless because it's not able to penetrate deeper. So my cat is whining to come inside. Come on. Come on.
All right, you guys are saying you can't hear me now. Can you? I'm talking.
I can hear you.
Okay, you can hear me. The audience is saying that. So that's weird.
Okay, so we've got the face down. Her complexion is done. It's looking great, looking fresh. You can see the natural glow on her skin, but still looks like skin. So I want to go in to the eyes, and I'm actually going to put on a little bit of primer first. So whoever was asking about a good vegan primer that will keep your makeup on, KVD came out with this really innovative, cool primer. It's called Shake Primer. So it actually has like a black liquid inside of it. It will not show up black, but you want to make sure that you're giving it a good shake before you use it. And then I'm going to just turn this over. And then there's a little, like you push the bottom of it and about one drop, maybe two. One drop usually does the trick to coat the entire, both eyelids. I'm going to use a brush to apply this. But it's clear. It's a liquid. It's not like a thicker primer like the ones we're used to seeing. It's more of like a watery type of consistency. And it really is amazing for bringing out the vibrancy of the shadows, but also preventing creasing as well. And it gives a true pigment tone to whatever shadows that you're using. Like it'll give you perfect color payoff to enhance whatever the colors are that you want to use. And typically if I was doing this on myself, I would use my fingers just to apply it all over. But I'm also working this into her eyebrows because I always like to put a little bit of primer on the brows. Oops. Pause.
Sorry.
1 second. Here you go. Are you having a fun? You're good? You're good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay.
Sorry. Sorry.
All good.
Let me,
Yeah.
put this in silence.
No worries.
I'll talk to her later.
Okay. She's like, sorry, I have priorities.
Priorities.
Okay. So I was saying that I like to put the primer on the brows when I know I'm going to be filling them in, because then, especially if you're using just the powder, it's going to give the powder something to adhere to. Or even if you're using a pencil, I mean, it's still going to help to keep it on a lot longer.
Oh, the same primer.
The same primer?
Yeah.
Yep. As I was putting it on your eye, I just kind of like brushed it on over the brows too.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a cool little trick that I discovered a couple years ago, and it's always made a difference. So I think I'm going to use a pencil. I'm going to start off on this side and see how this color works. But this is the KVD Signature Brow Pencil, which is a really cool shape. It has more of a square shape to the tip as opposed to a rounded shape. It's designed to give more of a hair-like stroke. And these are really waterproof, so they stay on extremely well. Just warming this up. I'm using the color taupe. Yeah, if you're more blonde or like light hair, silver hair, taupe or blonde are typically the way to go, but taupe is usually the one I find I use the most.
Oh, okay.
So I don't want to go too crazy on the brows, but I do want to fill in a little bit where there's less hair. So I'm going to start in this part of her brow. There we go. So I'm going to start about right here, and I'm just going to do short strokes going all the way across. What I like about this pencil is that it is buildable, so you don't end up with a bold brow before you know it. And then I'm just going to enhance the shape on top as well. Might need to go with the powder. The skin might be too wet right now. Yeah, I'm going to use the powder because I don't want to push on your skin too hard. For my own face to be different. So I'm still going to use a KVD product. It's the brow powder in the shade taupe. But the powders are, I think, probably the easiest thing to apply, in my opinion. And I'm just going to use an angled brush, taking a little bit here. And then I'm going to do exactly what I was trying to do with the pencil. But I'm going to start right here and just do some light strokes going all the way across. And then up towards the front. And then along the top of the brow. So if you are wanting to give your eyes more of a lift, a cool little trick is to just enhance your arch a bit, and that'll create more of a lift to the eye. So you can use your natural arch as your guide, but just taking it a little bit higher than its natural shape. Spoolie brushes will always be your best friend because it'll erase whatever mistake you made, or if you feel like you went on a little too heavy-handed, you can just use a spoolie and brush it out. AJ, how are your brows doing? Did you hear me?
You guys hear me?
Now I can hear you.
Okay, because people were saying they couldn't hear me. We're trying to play. I want to thank you for the brows, because you're the one that suggested I have them permanent, which I do now.
Awesome. So they're holding up well.
Yeah, well, you have to go back every 6 months for a touch up, because I didn't get the microblading. The people that do it, they don't do the permanent ink. They do semi-permanent.
Well, I'm glad that it worked out for you. Yeah, you were like the first person I thought of whenever I first heard about microblading.
Yeah, and actually now I'm getting powder instead, but she's going to come on the show too. Her name is Cindy Vu, so thanks to you.
Oh,
Okay, so
awesome.
guys, I'm trying to get my sound fixed, but it's going to take a minute, so we keep changing headphones. But this is good, because this is a visual one today. But people are saying about hooded eyelids, how help in applying shadow for people that have hooded eyelids.
Yeah,
actually.
Yeah. Well, Jessica actually has hooded eyelids.
I do have,
Yeah, she does. So we'll definitely touch on that. I personally love doing makeup on hooded eyelids. I feel like, to me, it's one of the eyes that I can really see a difference in, like in how I shape them or where I'm placing shadow. So yeah, I'm definitely excited to share with you guys what I would do, or what I like to do for a hooded lid to make the eyes appear bigger. But if there's any specific questions in regards to hooded eyes, please let me know so I can make sure that I address that.
Well, we have a different eyelid question from Geena, which is how to put makeup on crepey eyelids in foundation on thin wrinkled tissue paper type skin on the face.
Oh, geez.
So, you know, I think for that particular type of skin, you really want to be aware of the formulas that you're using as well as the finishes. So in terms of like the eyes on a more like crepey type of skin or like very fine line and wrinkles along the eyes, I would try to avoid anything that's got too much shimmer or too much like metallic finish. And I do hear this often where women, once they hit a certain age, are like, oh, I'm too old for sparkle, but that's not the case. It's really about knowing where to place it. But what ends up happening if you do have more of a crepey textured lid, when you put a metallic or too much shimmer on the actual eyelid, it enhances that. It's just going to accentuate the texture, make it look more textured. But if you use more of a matte shadow, it will prevent that. You're not going to look as, it's not going to enhance it so much, where you can still create shape and you might still see a little bit of texture. It's not going to bring it out as much. So I would say try to avoid the mattes along the lid and the crease, and then add your shimmer or your glow or luminous shadow to like the inner corner and the brow bone. That way it highlights the areas that are going to be flattering and not what we don't want to see. All right, so I've got a little eyebrow on. Just kind of brushing everything up. So if for any reason you go a little too thick on your brows, you can take your foundation or concealer and you can clean up underneath to sharpen the shape a little bit. But if you don't want to, you don't have to. Just to show y'all, I'm just going to take a tiny bit of foundation. Just a little bit. And a flat brush. And I'm going to have you turn like right there. And I'm just going to go directly underneath her brow and just kind of lightly clean up that shape. She's back.
Oh, she's back, right?
My cat, I have the back door open for her, but she keeps on going outside and then coming back and wants me to open this side door for her. She just wants me to give her a treat. And that's how she does it.
Do you think that as we age, we should change the way we do makeup and maybe not wear as much if we were somebody that wears a lot, or maybe we should wear more makeup? What do you think? Does makeup make people look younger, look older, look the same?
Yeah, I think, you know, you definitely want to, I like to think of makeup kind of like your clothes, right? Like you and your skincare. So you're obviously not going to be wearing, hopefully not the same thing you're wearing at 15 as you are as when you're 50 or 60, right? So you kind of have to change things for your body, and same thing goes for makeup and skincare. Our bodies change, our skin changes, our face changes. So really keeping that in mind is going to be important, because maybe the things that you did on your face 10 years ago aren't going to look the same because things have started to change on your face. So I would say, yes, as you get older, maybe less is more. I forgot to mention in that last question though, about like the skin in terms of like preppy skin, what I would opt for is something that's more like a sheer, like almost like liquid oil-based type of foundation. That's if you want it to look very natural. Like Ilia is a really great clean vegan brand that has their serum foundation, and it's super, super sheer, but it's just going to help to get rid of redness. But it's better because it's not so thick and heavy, and anything that's thick and heavy tends to accentuate fine lines and wrinkles more. So that serum aspect is so lightweight. I mean, it's like a skincare product that it's just going to make it so look like your skin and not sink in and look as heavy on the skin in general. But when it comes to changing your makeup routine, yeah, I think like maybe, you know, 10 years ago, you were wearing a fuller coverage foundation, where now you're starting to notice when you do a fuller coverage foundation that things are showing up that didn't before. So maybe instead of doing full coverage, you opt for something that is medium, or finding a buildable foundation that allows you to layer. Obviously something that's more hydrating would be more beneficial as opposed to something that's very matte. But I feel like, yes, you do need to pay attention to what's going on with your face and your makeup, but I also don't like to tell people what not to do, because at the end of the day, makeup is about making yourself feel better and feel good in what you're putting on your face to feel more confident. And look, if I see an 80-year-old woman rocking, you know, a glittery eyeshadow and she feels good, I'm gonna feel good for her, you know. So it just kind of depends on, I think, your personality, your overall like makeup vibe, and how you like to present yourself. But for like the average, like more everyday type of makeup, yes, definitely change as you get older. I would say every like 5 to 10 years is a good time to really look at your face and see what you might need to change or what has changed about you. And then maybe even having an artist to consult with to get some ideas or suggestions about what would be best for your face shape for where it's at currently.
Did you ever think of teaching classes like online for us people that can't get to you?
I've actually been doing that a lot throughout quarantine. With my job, I have been doing virtual consultations. I've done some classes. I haven't done I've done like classes with like more of a group of people kind of like this, but I haven't done like a one-on-one yet. But I have done I've done one-on-one consultations and helping people find product, but not necessarily showing them what to do, like a full face. But I'm totally open to that because that's what I do on a regular basis. Okay.
And I would promote it. I would love to have, because I love those classes at Sephora, and I can't.
I know. I miss teaching those classes.
Oh man, you and Peony were the best.
They were always packed.
Oh, really? Which one did you go to?
No, I tried to
you couldn't get in?
I
Dang.
couldn't get in.
Okay, well,
I couldn't get in.
look, you're getting your own
I'm getting
personal
it
class
on.
right now.
Yes.
AJ was literally the one who would show up at almost every single class that I taught for years and years, and she's always been such a huge cheerleader. She was my model plenty of times.
It's like taking a painting class, but the canvas was your own face.
Yep,
Yeah,
that's it.
that's true. That's
All
so
right.
much fun.
So we are going to go in with the contour palette again, but this time I'm going to be using this for her eyeshadow. So I love the contour palette for eyeshadow because it actually is going to create a very natural look because it's designed to mimic shadows on the face. So I'm going to start with this to kind of create some depth and dimension, but then we're going to add maybe like a little touch of shimmer on her inner corner / lid. But because she does have more of a hooded eyelid, I want to make sure that I'm breaking this down for y'all to feel really good about. But first thing I want to do is set her actual primer, and I just put a little concealer underneath her brow. So I want to make sure that everything is locked in and not going to move. So I'm going to take just this lighter bone color shadow here and a large brush, and I'm just going to lightly tap it at her brow bone. And it already is going to start to brighten. I'm not going to focus it too much on the lid right now because I know where I'm going to go next is the crease, and that's where I want to make sure is actually mattified and not too wet. Because if your eyeshadow or if your eyelid is still a little like damp from product and you go in with a shadow, it tends to stick and become patchy, and then you have to go back and erase, and it's not fun. Okay, so what I always like to suggest for my hooded lid clients is to make sure that when you're doing your makeup, that you're doing it first with your eyes open to kind of see where you're going to place your color. So it's like you're looking straight into a mirror. I want to give the illusion of her crease being higher than it naturally is. We're going to kind of create a crease. So to look in the mirror, like straight into a mirror, you're going to be able to see, all right, well, I want to make sure that it's showing with my eye open about right here, or as high as really you want it, but I want you guys to be able to really see the difference. So I'm going to do one eye at a time. But when you're doing this on yourself, once you've determined where you're going to place that crease color, you're going to look into a mirror and tilt your head back. And like, let's say the mirror was right here, your eyes will go here. So eyes here, but then keeping your head back. So then it's kind of like having your eyes shut, but it's actually open still. Because what ends up happening, especially with a hooded lid, is that if you're doing your makeup with your eyes shut, you think you're putting the shadow exactly where you want it to go. And when you open your eyes, it's a different story. Things end up, you're like, well, how did I don't even see it. Like, where did it go? But if you do it with your eyes open and you know where you're placing your color, you're going to get a much more precise application. So I'm going to go in with that same color that I use on it as our contour. I'm just going to use a fluffy crease brush. This little center color here. And have you touch your head back. And what I'm going to do is start at the outer part of her crease. And I'm just going to start to go in little circular motions up towards her brow bone, but staying kind of, like I said, creating a crease, but staying within what would be her crease here. You can do little circular motions, or you can do back and forth like windshield wiper motions. But once again, making sure you're taking a little bit of product at a time to layer and build. And you can always, pause and kind of get a little temperature check of where your placement is. You can stop and look straight, so open. So as she keeps her eyes straight, I'm turning right here. This cat is driving me crazy. She wants treats so bad right now, but she's not getting any. Okay, so just going in with a little bit more, and I'm taking it right towards the center. I'm going a little bit higher. So like I said, this is going to ultimately help to give that illusion that her eye is now lifted, and we're creating more of a lid because of this crease that we're now applying. So a good crease brush, I think, is vital. If you have a good crease brush, it'll change everything for your eyeshadow application, whether you're doing a natural look or a smoky look. Go ahead and look straight. So now you can start to see where we've placed the shadow a little bit higher. And once we go in with the lid color, I'm actually going to put the lid color a little bit higher as well too. So it's going to actually make the lids look like they're bigger. I'm going to do one eye at a time. Okay. So if you are concerned with, your eyelids looking more textured or crepey, that is where using, one of these bone color shadows or matte shadow would be more beneficial for your eye. But in the case that you like a little shimmer, you can do this next step. Now, I do like a little shimmer or luminosity because it can enhance the eye, like I said, if you put it in the right spot. This is the Shade and Light Glimmer palette. So this you can't really tell on camera, but this does actually have sparkles in it. So I'm going to go in with this color here. It's nice, like champagne tone. Let me grab my brush. If I didn't, hang on. I'm going to take a flat shadow brush like this and a little bit of the shadow. Tap off my excess. And I'm going to have you close your eyes home. And now I'm just going to go in. I'm just lightly pulling her brow. I don't want to go crazy. It's really not always a good idea to pull the skin to an unnatural state, because then it's going to look different once you release it. But just to hold the skin nice and taut. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to tap this on her lid, right in the center, focusing into the center. I'm pulling it a little bit naturally, a little bit higher than her natural lid shape itself to create that illusion. And you can keep this really soft, or you can, layer it until you get to your desired happy place. Like if you like a stronger shimmer or a brighter lid, you just keep on layering. Okay, open. And now I can see with her eye open that I need to go a little bit higher right in here. So we're recreating that lid shape. And again, here we go. So if you see one eye to the next, kind of get some light here too. So from one eye, we can see we have a little bit of dimension and shape, and then a little bit of that lifted eyelid. And then on this side, you can see the difference. We don't have as much dimension. We don't have as much depth. So it looks a little bit more flat on this side. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. All right. So I'm just going to go ahead and complete this eye, and then based on time, we'll see if we can do the other. Yeah. Okay. So the next thing that I want to do that I think is probably the most beneficial for a hooded eyelid. Do you use black liner or do you use brown liner typically?
During the day brown,
okay.
But during night black.
Okay.
I use you both.
You both? Do you have a preference for today?
No, you can.
Okay.
I'll let it to you.
Let's
You're
do
the
black.
artist.
We'll do black. Okay, so I'm going to be using the Cake Pencil from KVD. This is a cream to powder formula, so it goes on really easily and creamy. It gives you about 30 seconds to smudge it if you want, but once it sets, it's going to stay on. It is quite waterproof. So I'm going to tight line her eyes. This might be a little uncomfortable. Have you done this before?
Yes.
Okay. So
I tight line.
Okay, she tight lines. So this is one of my favorite tricks, because what happens with hooded eyes is that if you do a liner on the lash line, once your eyes are open, she knows, you're not going to see it. Yeah, you can't see it. But if you actually apply it to the inner part of the eye, you're going to start to get this illusion of there being a liner without it swallowing your eye. Come on, light.
It's not helping us.
No, my light is not doing very much right now.
Do you want me to hold it?
I don't want to get tired.
That's okay.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I'm going to have you look down and keep your eyes open. So what I'm going to do is just lightly pull her eye up, and I'm going to take that pencil and go in between her lashes and also on the waterline. So when you're doing this on yourself, it does take a little bit of getting used to, but she's obviously a pro because she hasn't even blinked. But I really want to focus it on that waterline and in between the lashes, because that's what's going to give this really nice, rich depth to the lash line to make the eyes look bigger and make your lashes look fuller too once we get mascara on.
So Geena, for people that wear glasses, do they have to do their makeup differently?
I mean, I think it depends on your glasses, because I also wear glasses, and I've had ones like my bigger ones where I feel like, I like to wear those when I have eyeshadow on. But if you have ones with thicker bands that kind of cover up your eyes, you might not want to take your eyeshadow as high up. It's not going to necessarily be seen, but it's not necessarily something specific for glasses wearers that I find, because it really boils down to your eye shape and your glasses, you know, but I definitely think that paying attention to that is good when you're determining how you want to create the shape of your eye and your eyeshadow, if that makes sense. So if you guys can see the difference here with the liner on her tight line compared to the other eye, see how it makes it look like she has eyeliner on?
Wow, I mean,
Go ahead
she
and look
looks
down for me.
amazing, and she doesn't really look like she's wearing much makeup.
Yes, very natural, fresh face, but you can see it's like when she looks down, there's no actual liner on her eye, her lash line, but when she opens, look straight, it looks like it.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite tricks to making hooded eyes look bigger, because liner usually does the complete opposite for them.
Yeah. When I discovered it, it was like mind blowing.
Game changer, right?
Yeah.
It's
It's
like
like I
literally,
actually had a
yeah,
had eyeshadow
exactly.
on my eye.
Can we get it to stay in the little hole?
That's what I'm trying to do.
Oh, there! That's great. Good job. That's smart thinking. Do you normally curl your eyelashes? Or not really?
Yes and no,
Okay.
depending how lazy I am.
Okay. All right.
They're
Well,
pretty straight.
okay. Well, then maybe we can get a little curl. So I'm going to. I have another thing here. I'm going to use the mascara from KVD, the Go Big or Go Home. This mascara is great for volume, but it's also really great for length too. It's one of the first high performance vegan mascaras. It's powered by sunflower oil. And what I like is that as a volumizing mascara, it's buildable. So it's not going to give you too much right away. It allows you to work it to the, you know, desired volume that you like. This is kind of a cool lash curler. I'm going to have you go ahead and look down. I ordered this from Amazon. It's just like it's like from a Japanese website, and it's a tiny little lash curler. So it's allowing me to go like section by section. Her lashes are a little shorter.
What are you doing now, Geena?
This is a little lash curler from Amazon, but it's like, I use it typically to press lashes together, like when I put falsies on, but it's also great for like smaller lashes to go in little sections to squeeze and curl.
Oh, interesting.
Right? So this is the travel size or the smaller size of the Go Big or Go Home, but there is a traditional like bigger tube typically. But what I want you to do is go ahead and look down and keep your eyes open. And you can blink as much as you need. So I'm just going to start at the root of her lash, and I'm just going to wiggle it up and out. So this is a smudge and flake free formula, which is also amazing. Most volumizing mascaras I feel like tend to flake, at least on me personally. So you can do like a little wiggle and then up and out, or you can start at the root and do like a spinning motion, and it'll help to coat the lashes, but also give a nice lift to them as well.
You're saying KVD, right? Like V
Yep.
as in Victor.
V as in Victor.
Yeah, it stands for Kat Von D, right?
It used to. So she was the original co-founder of the brand, but she sold her shares this past January. So they've now changed the name to KVD, Vegan Beauty.
Right, because she herself was vegan last time we checked.
Yes, that's why when she created her brand, her products weren't vegan, but because that was, because she is vegan, that was really important to her to have products that were as well. So they ended up changing all their products to being vegan, and everything that gets launched now is vegan as well.
That's great.
Yes.
So I have a question.
Okay.
I have an eye and a lip question. So Stephanie says, I have green eyes and black glasses. What color eyeshadow do you suggest? I suggest
Green eyes and black glasses.
I say purple.
Purple, yes. So on green eyes, you cannot go wrong with a purple. I think that's one of my favorites. But I also love, I just missed this up. No, stay, light, stay. It needs your touch. Sorry, you guys.
We're trying to figure out the light here. Looks like.
Okay, there we go.
Don't move.
I can't touch it. So for green eyes, I love like coppery tones, or like even like a pretty bronzy color is beautiful. But yeah, I mean, I feel like I tend to opt for more purples and like almost like a like burgundy copper kind of color story. I feel like that'll really enhance the eye tones. Tarte has some really great palettes that have those colors, and that would be vegan. But if you haven't tried purple, that's a great way to do it. And I think like if your glasses are maybe on the thicker side and you don't necessarily want to do full eyeshadow and maybe color scares you a little bit, I love to do eyeliner a colored liner as an alternative to eyeshadow, but it's a great way to still make your eyes pop while wearing glasses. So you just have, you know, the liner that you're obviously going to see through the lens, that'll enhance your eye color, and it'll make it look like, you know, a little fun because you have a little pop of color in there too. I'm just gonna get the other eye on.
Heidi says, I have always worn a berry lipstick, but now it's 74. It looks too blue on my face. I am looking for a more neutral shade or coral.
Okay. Do you like a matte lipstick or do you like something more creamy?
If you're asking me, I always like shiny.
Well, if she wants something that's kind of more creamy, I would look at Bite Beauty's lipsticks. They have some really, really gorgeous colors. I would say if she wants something a little bit more coral, I would have to look at the names. I'm just trying to think of their, she said coral or neutral. Oh, a beautiful neutral color from Bite is Amaretto, and their cream pencil lipstick. Amaretto is gorgeous. And then from KVD, there is a lipstick, the Studded Kiss lipstick in Lolita 2. That's a beautiful coral color, and the formula is amazing. It's like a creamy matte, so it stays on really well, but it doesn't look shiny. It just feels creamy on the lips, but gives more of a matte look overall, and it's just like really, really comfortable all day. Yeah, Lolita 2 from KVD, or Amaretto from Bite Beauty.
Gina, that's spelled Gina, wants to know what is the crease brush you're using. Crease brush.
So the one that I'm using is, it's actually an older brush from Sephora. They recently just redid all their brushes, but I would just say, honestly, I would, if you were to go into a Sephora or any makeup store for that matter and ask them for a good fluffy crease brush, that ultimately is going to be, they'll know what to do. That ultimately is going to be like the main thing that they need to know in order to point you in the right direction. I am not even kidding when I say I'm constantly buying new crease brushes. Like I'm always like waiting for that next best one, you know? So I just have like a plethora of them in my personal brush selection. Morphe has some really good ones too, but ultimately having that fluffiness, so it's not too tapered or pointed, or like too dense, that's going to be what helps to create that softer application. Because the more dense a brush is, it applies it in a more concentrated amount. So when it's fluffy, it allows you to diffuse it a little bit easier.
For the crease.
For the crease, yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah.
I'm getting an education.
She's getting to learn too. Want to go ahead and look down? Go.
Diana says, what is the eye in the triangle on your wall?
That is the what is it? The evil eye, but it's meant to protect you from negative energy. I had bought that on a trip to New Orleans down in the quarter. Some person, like they have, you know, so many arts and crafts down there, and I saw that and I was like, ooh, that's kind of cool. I like protection, especially in today's world.
Yeah.
I can use all the protection I can get. There's mascara there, yeah.
Is it like a sun, right? Like
It kind of has like a sun too.
Energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Thanks. Little curl.
It's magic.
This little thing. I know,
Yeah.
I love it. It's so fun. Okay. So go ahead and look down. So if you're maybe your preference of mascara, like maybe you don't necessarily want to volumize your lashes, maybe you just want to add length. One thing to note, like when you're trying to purchase a new mascara, always pay attention to how big the wand itself is. So anytime you see like a bigger wand like this, that means that it's going to give you more volume. If it's thinner, or if it has maybe like the more like the silicone bristles, those tend to be more for definition. But paying attention to what that brush will look like can ultimately change how you love your mascara. Because even though this one does help with length, its main focus is volume, and you can see that in how big the wand is. Tarte also has some really great mascara options too that are all vegan. And Bite Beauty will be coming out with one soon. Okay.
Oh, wow.
She's ready to go out tonight. Okay, so I'm going to finish off with a little lip. And do you have a preference of a matte or a hydrating lip?
No.
No?
No.
Okay, so I'm actually going to use that color Amaretto, which is this beautiful neutral.
Oh, I like that color.
Yeah, I don't know how well y'all can see it here. Can you see that okay, that tone? But this is the one I was saying earlier that I would highly recommend is like a great creamy finish. What's also great about the Bite lipsticks is that they can be used as blush. So there's a sharpener on the bottom. You just pull it off. So I'm going to sharpen this now. But what I would typically do if I was using this as a blush is just take off like any of the shavings and then just kind of apply that to the cheeks. So you can kind of take that stuff off of there and then you could just tap it onto the cheeks. Or if you want to give like more of that dewy kind of look, let's just do it. Why not? Just tap a little bit more on top of what you have going on. Take my sponge, put it over there. I keep losing this. I got it.
Yeah, I think it's the running away sponge.
It is. It blends into everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can just get a little 2-in-1 in your lipstick. So just tapping it and then using my sponge to blend. Since there was some powder, I just want to get the sponge to press it into the skin. I'm all for a 2-in-1 though. That's like one of my favorite things. Get a little double whammy. All right. So what I also love about these is that you can use it as a lip liner because you can sharpen it. So I'm going to start at her Cupid's bow. You can look straight ahead. I'm going to start at her Cupid's bow and I'm just going to create like a little X along her actual Cupid's bow here. And then I'm going to go on the corners of her lips. Make sure I'm not blocking this. So just lifting the lip up a little bit. I'm just going to go at the corner on each side. So this is a really great way to shape your lips and then kind of connect all those lines together so that everything can look more defined and even. So now that I have the Cupid's bow and those outer edges, I'm going to connect everything. So starting at the tip of the Cupid's bow here, I'm going to pull that down to connect it. And then same thing over here. And then on the bottom, we're going to go starting in the center. I'm going to do a line pretty much directly across. And then same thing on the outer corners. Looks so pretty on you. Such a good color.
Yeah, it's a pretty color.
Yeah, and the formula is amazing. It's so creamy. It's so long wearing. Bite Beauty's lipsticks are, this is actually, it has orange wax or orange peel wax in it to help retain moisture and give you a matte finish without it like making your lips feel dried and cracky. I was gonna say cracked out. And now we're just going to go in and fill. Also, if you have really dry lips, Bite Beauty has their agave lip mask, which is incredible, or they have like their daily balm. So if you suffer from dry lips or just like hydration overall, I would highly, highly recommend their lip treatment products. The agave line is amazing. Close for me. So I'm just going to go a little bit in the center. I'm going to go a little bit higher just to create a little bit of a fuller top lip. Totally optional. And then of course, if you wanted to add like a gloss or something over it, you could, or you could leave it as is. That's the fun part of makeup, is kind of just making it your own. And what's cool about lipsticks too is that, you know, just by adding a gloss or a lip liner, you can actually change the whole look of the lipstick. A little bit more over here. One thing that we tend to do when we're doing our lips is, you know, we get so focused and looking maybe at a close-up mirror that we might think that it looks perfect, but once you step away from the mirror, like kind of look a little bit further, you'll start to notice maybe where it's uneven or maybe where there might be a lower part, a higher part. So as you complete your lips, it's always good to kind of step back and look into the mirror to see if everything looks balanced. Because up close, it always looks perfect.
I see.
All right, that's awesome. Okay, so one of the last things I'm going to do is just spray her face. Now this product is not vegan, so I apologize, but I don't have a vegan setting spray, but it is really amazing and it feels great and it smells fantastic too. It's the Fenty I'm breaking things over here. Just don't mind me. This is the Fenty Beauty What It Do spray. So I love this to just kind of melt product into the skin and keep things on longer. And of course, have the makeup last even longer. But I think sometimes when you're using matte products or powders, like the skin might look a little bit more powdery. But what I love about this spray is that it will help to bring back that look of skin and hydration. So I can just go ahead and close. Oh, doesn't it smell so good? It's
yes.
so great. The smell, I literally just spray this on my face for the smell half the time. But Tarte also has an amazing setting spray. KVD also has an amazing setting spray. There's several. I think setting sprays really boil down to finding what works for your skin. But this one I find is great for everybody, but I don't find it to.
Mist,
yes,
right?
The mist is like when you go to a restaurant and like a theme park and they have those little misters outside when it's hot. That's the kind of mist that it feels like on your face. It's like very light and just misty. Okay, so this is the final look. We have fresh face, natural eyes, little defined eyes, and a nice little natural lip to finish off. So that is it.
Wow. So, we didn't do a before and after, but I have a screenshot on the before, and wow, I mean, just wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. You have to send it to me, AJ.
Well, I mean, it's what the YouTube made when I'm looking at it. Like, it's like the first minute of YouTube. It's unbelievable.
Oh, well, thank you.
I'm sure somebody's going to be able to get a before and after from that. I'm not much on editing, but I can ask my husband if he can do it.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Or I'll have to have you send me a before picture tomorrow and I'll just say after one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely stunning. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, are there any other questions? I know like this is obviously, it's going to be different for everybody. I just wanted to give some tips that I feel like anyone could apply to their everyday makeup that doesn't feel overwhelming. Because I feel like, and I hear this so often that, a lot of women will feel intimidated or overwhelmed by all the things that they see online, feeling like they need to do the most. And one of the things that I always encourage clients to do is to find what works for you. So maybe it's not this entire look, right? But maybe it's the brows, maybe it's the blush application, maybe it's just tight lining. Like find one thing that maybe you're not doing now that could ultimately enhance your look that you feel like you could incorporate without it feeling like you have to do all these other things. But whatever makes you feel good about yourself, that's what makeup's all about. So bring out your inner beauty and inner confidence and, make you feel like the rock star that you are.
Oh man, this is amazing.
Oh, thank you, AJ. Was
Wow.
there anything else?
Just they're asking what products you use, so maybe you could email me and then I can always add it to the show notes.
Yeah, I will definitely send that over to you.
Yeah. Oh wow. Well, thank you for doing this, Jessica. You're a great model.
Thank you.
Such a great model. And a great light holder.
She's a great makeup artist.
So guys, everybody follow Geena on Instagram. It's at Makeup by Geena at Instagram. And I gave you her email in the chat if you want to book a private consultation. I hope you'll consider teaching classes to us lay people sometime through Zoom, where there can be a bunch of
I would be more than happy to.
Yeah, that would be fun. All right. Well, thank you so much. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific time when we have vegan pastry chef extraordinaire Fran Costigan baking up a storm. Thanks again, Geena and Jessica.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
safe week.